Hi, I'm Guy Berry, and this is the Optimistic American Book Club. Today, we are going to be discussing the book Elon Musk and the biography written by Walter Isaacson. Walter Isaacson is famous for writing many biographies, including such as Ben Franklin, but this was a much anticipated one. Today's guest is John Love, a local business owner in Phoenix, Arizona. John, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about Elon Musk's book. I love how I talked about the progression of his life and over the years, as well as his business life. And I think that there's a lot to learn for an entrepreneur or anyone that wants to improve a process or a system or even an entire business or industry. There's going to be a lot of lessons here for them.
Okay, so let's start with that. Is this book helpful? You believe it's helpful to a business owner?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's not just helpful, but it's gold. Like, it's covered in golden nuggets, and not too many. There's just a few key principles that you can see. You can see where Elon Musk learned it initially, like in his earlier businesses, and then you can see the reapplication of it when he started other companies like Tesla and SpaceX and Neuralink. And in the future, you can see how he's just continually compounding his lessons and learning from them and applying them to make an even bigger impact.
Yeah. So the book is 600 pages, so long. It's the second biography, maybe there's more, but of Elon Musk. You also read the first biography.
Yeah.
What of the two, which one did you like more?
Yeah.
Or which one has more relative content, if it's not about liking, because liking's your perspective, but which one has more meat to it or juice to it?
Yeah, the first one was by Ashley Vance. He wrote it probably around 2013, so it's earlier. It's missing a lot of the more recent businesses and successes and even failures that Elon Musk has undergone.
So pre-X, formerly known as Twitter.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The second X. It's got the first one that became PayPal. But yeah, I think this one focused a lot more, I thought, on his personal life. I think it had more of Walter Isaacson's opinion on Elon Musk. I didn't love where he was calling him like a drama seeker.
Yeah.
And how he was always just focused on getting that sort of adrenaline or stress. Even though he might be, I don't think it's drama driven. I thought my opinion was that he was more just looking to live life. Like, he needed something to live for, a big mission, a big goal that he was getting after. And he's just not in his personality to sit back and be bored. Ashley Vance's had a lot of the earlier lessons from the earlier companies. And I love that biography. It was really, really good. The only difference is just that it's missing the later years, but it was great. And
Walter Isaacson, he followed Elon for 3 years, I believe, to help
2 to 3 years,
2 to 3 years to help get this. So, I mean, he a lot of work, and that is what you can expect with Walter Isaacson when he writes a biography. He's going to put work into it, and we saw that with this. Okay, I wanted to start with this quote. I just love it. It's from Elon Musk, is on Saturday Night Live, and the quote comes from that, but he puts it in the front of this book, which to me sums up who Elon is in a couple of sentences. But he says, "To anyone I offended, I just want to say I reinvented electric cars and I am sending people to Mars in a rocket ship. Did you think I was going to be a chill, normal dude?" That is what I felt as I read this book. And it starts in the beginning with where Elon Musk is from. I did not realize he was from South Africa and grew up in that area. And there is some trouble with his father, Errol. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
Errol.
Errol, is that?
I think so.
Okay, so Errol, and so with his father, Errol, you could see that there was a divorce, and then Elon Musk goes to live with his father at the age of 10. But even in those early years, it seems like Elon had some troubled years. Now, you and I discussed a little bit that I believe that's what developed him to make being a little quirky and having these weird things about him is this past of his. And so when you look at his maybe mood swings or how he is as a person, I look to some of those early years that I read about. You have a different opinion about what makes Elon maybe quirky or his personality swinging all over the place.
Yes, it probably says more about me than him, but I don't think he's that out there.
Okay.
I think he's just a guy that is very, very capable, has
Yep.
a lot of potential, and doesn't want to leave any of it on the table. And so he's constantly seeking these challenges and succeeding. So then he has to go for the next big challenge, like the next big real problem to solve. And I think that's what we're seeing. Now, that can also lead to a lot of stress.
Yep.
Sometimes good because he's learned a lot, he's grown, he's changed the world. And sometimes, obviously, there's bad effects, you know, like in personal family life, the living in the factory all day for months, that can take a toll for sure on the personal side. I do think there was probably formative experiences in his childhood in South Africa, like when he moved to Canada and the US, he had more freedom, more opportunity to be able to
I think that was it. Was that
develop
age
businesses.
17? I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember. Yeah, I think it was
around there.
age 17 or so.
Yes. Yeah, so I think that having something to compare it to, Canada and the US versus South Africa, a place where he thought it was violent, would get beat up in school. I think the comparison, the contrast really helped him see that and take advantage of the giant opportunity. I can kind of relate to that as well, being from Mexico and moving here. It's night and day. I love it so much here, and I think I appreciate it way much knowing, like having a different, something to compare it to. But ultimately, I think he's just seeking a challenge. I don't think he's that quirky. I would call it unique. He's different. He likes different things. A lot of people don't love to just seek out challenges and problems and just having that brain damage of solving really difficult issues.
Yeah.
I can understand trying to stay away from those things, but I don't think he's weird for tackling them.
Yeah, and I was intrigued to learn that him and his cousins and his brother would play Dungeons and Dragon, and you know, I didn't put that on him, but now it totally makes sense. Just that mentality. It's a strategy game, but. So what did you take away in the early years, or what do you think is something someone else could take away that would be impactful or understand? And I'll start with this. For me, I took away, it shows who Elon was. He was the type of person that did it his way, meaning his parents get divorced. He makes the choice of who he wants to live with. He wants to live with his dad, even though his dad was a little bit harder to live with. And then when he was ready, he said, I'm out and I'm going to Canada. I mean, without a true plan, like put money in my pocket. And I think I have some relatives in Canada that I can go find. But he just goes and figures it out. To me, that speaks of who he was, or is, sorry. And so what do you take away in those early years?
Yeah, from the early years, it's obvious that I think there was this quote, I think it was Andrew Jackson that said it, that they mentioned in the book, said something like he was born for a storm, like he's not suited for the calm. Mm-hmm. He was seeking adventure. Mm-hmm. And you can see that early on, and you can see that even through to this day.
Yep.
And he's definitely autonomous. He'll make his own decisions. He's independent.
Yep.
And he'll take a risk.
Yeah.
He'll go move countries, move continents even, without much of a plan. And he knows that he's capable and believes in himself that he'll figure it out when he gets there and make it even better.
Right.
And so he's just constantly setting himself up for a big success.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if he fails, it's a lesson that's going to help him get to the next success. And that's just obvious and recurring throughout the whole book.
Yeah. So then he goes to college or university, if you will, the Canada world, they call it university. But and then from there he gets into starting businesses. I mean, that's what he ultimately wants to do. He wants to be an entrepreneur. One of his early businesses, I know he was basically showering, I want to say, at the YMCA and trying to make it work and figure it out. So, I mean, this is a guy who he goes all in. Like, anything he does. He doesn't need a lot of money to make the decisions he wants to go do. That's not his first motivation. It might be his end goal or an end result that he's looking for is more money, but in the beginning he's willing to sacrifice it all for it. So what did you learn that maybe you didn't already know, or something new as he now is getting into those early 20s years as he's had those experiences and now trying to start up smaller businesses?
The big takeaways from those early years, I would say, first of all, that the money thing you mentioned, not being driven by it, it just seemed to be a byproduct of what he was doing. He was going after aggressive, large missions.
Yep.
And he would decide to do it and then figure it out later, what the business model would be, how it would make money. He just knew what change he wanted to make.
Yep.
And early on for Zip2, his first startup, he was all in, a theme that you see even today, even as the richest person in the world. He'll still go and dive in and live in the factory, live in the office, do what needs to be done to make it successful. But what I learned, the biggest lesson for him, and I thought for me, from that Zip2 days, was when he started raising money from venture capitalists. They wanted to install professional management into the company, and they did, and he didn't love that.
Yep.
He liked the autonomy and the control of being able to control the product, build it for the user, whereas the venture capitalists wanted to build it as a business-to-business product, which just means that there's an intermediary in the way of the product and the actual consumer. So he learned that you have to get feedback directly from your customer. Like, the faster you can get to the problem or the failure, the faster you can fix it and make it even better and better and better. So that was the first big lesson from Zip2, is in order to be the product officer and the chief technology officer, you have to be the CEO so you can control all of the decisions.
Yeah, in his mind. I wouldn't say that. In
his mind.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not, I wouldn't call that the norm.
In his mind, which is probably the most phenomenal entrepreneur.
Sure. But I'm just saying, you wouldn't read this book and then say, hey, I think every successful entrepreneur should also be the CEO, the chief product officer, but they do have an influence as the entrepreneur. I also
I disagree.
You disagree with that?
They all start that way. They all start as owner, CEO. They're driving the business.
Absolutely.
They hire others later on to delegate. But you see it time and time again that the next CEO, the next board, the next investor tries to kick out the founder completely.
I view it as it's two different organizations. That's how I view it. There's an entrepreneur-led organization, one that the entrepreneur has full control, wants to dictate. And then as soon as there's somebody who comes in that now they want to be the leader, they want to be the CEO, they want to make the decisions, it's a different business. Both of them could be successful, and both of them could have successful paths. The question becomes, how much is the owner wanting to invest in that time going forward? Meaning, I view it as somebody comes into an organization, let's say it's through a capital raise, through money, let's say it's an IPO. Now you've got to have new leadership. When that new leadership is inserted and the CEO, the entrepreneur, the owner is now in a lesser role, total different company. So the question becomes, which company, does somebody want to be a part of? I mean, in the early years with Elon and Zip2 or whatever, there were people quitting. There were people that were like, I can't deal with this guy's personality, right? Like, so is that the perfect thing? I don't know, but they couldn't handle him. I mean, he was fighting his brother at the company, like wrestling him, not your normal workplace environment. So I don't think there's one right or wrong answer. It really is dependent on the owner and what they're willing to give up or be a part of. Meaning the owner has to know in their head, hey, this new company with new leadership is going to be completely different than what I built. And am I okay with that? And typically the owners that are okay with it are the ones that are saying, I'm getting a big check, so I'm okay with it, and they can do whatever they want with a company. But that's hard, right? True entrepreneur, that's their baby. That's like giving up on their baby. Like
there's different types of owners for sure.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, you're right. a lot of the time. What it comes down
Wait, you
to,
think I'm right a lot of the time?
a lot of the time. I don't think that applies everywhere.
I'm not right everywhere?
You're not.
Oh,
No,
man.
definitely not.
Dang.
Definitely not.
Okay.
You're pretty close though.
Oh, wow. Thanks.
But what you see in like the recessions, the times of struggle, is that the owner, who the company is his baby, or who wants to see a mission out there in the world come to fruition, they will buckle down, go live in the factory, go do whatever it takes. Where I think a professional leadership structure would not.
Yeah.
They're okay with getting a payday. The business go bankrupt, they still get paid. They get stocks or payment to stay there and see it through. Business goes bankrupt, it's gone. They made their money. They just go find another job somewhere else.
I think it's speed of decision, though. I think it's speed of when the entrepreneur owner is there and it's in hard times, you need fast decisions. And they are good at that. Doesn't always mean that's the right decision. They're good at fast decisions, which is important in those struggle periods. And that's why you find them living on the floor, doing other things, because they need to be making fast decisions where the typical corporate environment, if you will, decisions are so slow, right? They're just, forget it.
That's what I'm saying, though.
I understand.
Without the owner there,
No,
the decisions slow down and then slow down and then...
I get it. I'm just saying there's...
It's just the culture's different.
That's why I call it two different companies.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, so now talk about what happens after Zip 2. So now what does Elon go to from there? Because he's frustrated that he doesn't like this new structure.
Yeah, so ultimately there's an exit for that business. They sell it to Compaq, and he gets a cool $22 million check from that transaction, and then he looks for the next adventure. Like he's not done after that. I think he gets a nice car. That's when he was filmed by CNN getting delivery of the McLaren.
Yep.
But immediately he looks on for the next adventure, and that's where he goes back to his earlier college days, looking into and researching the financial system. Mm-hmm. And I think it was when he was speaking with a banker, he had found out there was an opportunity. I think it was Spanish bonds or something like that, Latin American bonds, where he thought it was like an obvious way to make money, and he presented it to a bank, and they said, we already have too much exposure in that. We don't want to do this. And he thought that was a silly way to make decisions, because if something was like an obvious win, why wouldn't you put more? You know it's going to win, which it was to him. So he learned from that there's a lot of the thinking in banking and the financial organizations is flawed, and he could go remake that industry. So that's when he starts what became PayPal.
Yeah. And so then he creates PayPal, or what becomes PayPal. And then he, we could go into a lot of detail into that, but I want to fast forward us just because a 600-page book, we could talk for 4 hours. And
I'll touch on one quick lesson.
Yeah, please do.
The PayPal days.
Please do.
So he creates X, merges it into PayPal.
Yep.
The big thing that stuck with him was that, again, he wanted to be CEO to control the product. So he kicked out the prior management, and during the merger became CEO. And during I think it was during the recession, 2007 timeframe. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was earlier than that, but he went on vacation to South Africa. He never didn't go on vacations frequently. Took one vacation, and they set up a coup. They kicked him out of PayPal, took away his CEO position, and replaced him in that position. So that one stuck with him. Don't go on vacations.
There you go. That's right. So good point for all executives and business owners. Never take a vacation. So he gets that, the coup happens or whatever, but he makes his money off that PayPal deal, right? So he makes his money, has plenty of money. He could ride off into the sunset. Instead, he's got to take on Tesla, and he's got to take on SpaceX. He starts creating these other companies that he wants to get into, and as he's doing that, there's a point where he could lose it all. Could be all gone. Mm-hmm. Tesla's on the point of bankruptcy. SpaceX can't get a rocket off the ground without exploding. Yeah. It's off the ground, I guess, but it's exploding. Yeah. So he truly risked everything, right? Like he had like no money. Like this is it. What did you learn from that area?
Yeah, well, firstly, just because of what we were talking about earlier, I would say PayPal is a great example of how that company becomes different with an owner versus a founder. Because PayPal, he wanted to make it the everything bank. It could be all banking, all transactions. It can be your bank accounts, everything, the whole financial system in one, basically.
Yep.
Which would have been X. And the other founders, they just wanted to, or the other management that they put in place, just wanted to be a merchant,
Right.
processor for eBay.
Right.
And that worked. That was very successful. They made, I think he made 150 million or something like that, maybe 175 million on that transaction. Just
Small
him,
amount. Yeah.
just him by himself. Yeah, just a trivial amount compared to what he has now. And then he goes and rolls over all the winnings into a couple projects. He started tackling SpaceX and then later Tesla.
Yep.
But yeah, during the recession, I mean, I learned so much reading about these near failures and lessons from Tesla and SpaceX both potentially going bankrupt. Even just little tiny decisions. You can see a lot of the repercussions of the risks that he takes. A lot of times they're successful, and sometimes they're not. Like each of the 3 rockets that exploded was just a little tiny thing that cost $20 million in the rocket exploding.
Yeah.
Like I think the first one was one of the nuts was loose on the rocket, or they thought it was that, but actually it ended up being a valve was corroded by the sea air on the island that he decided to go and take off from, and that brought down the whole spaceship, one little valve. And so I just love his ability to keep taking risks over and over, even though he committed to 3 launches for SpaceX. When the 3rd one failed, he committed again. He's like, nope, we're going to go for one more. We're going to go for the 4th one, even though I don't have any money to do it. And we're going to do it in 6 weeks. We're going to relaunch it and make it happen.
Tesla was drying up too, right? So, I mean, it wasn't just SpaceX. Tesla didn't have any money behind. It was starting to lose its money at that point too.
Yeah, and that was a huge testament to the product that he made at Tesla. Being CEO, being the designer of the product, the way he saved Tesla was, number 1, he got a loan from the government, and number 2, he got a huge $50 million investment from Daimler, which he only got because they visited his factory and took a drive in the car, in the Roadster, the original Roadster. So once they saw that, they were like, oh, okay.
Yep.
This could be something.
So during that time, Walter Isaacson also talks about he started to have issues with stress, and that he could be, vomiting at night or about to vomit, and just even went to doctors about potential appendicitis, that because he didn't know what it was. Or there's even I believe one of his ex-wives even talks about that he thought he was having a heart attack during some of this. So the guy obviously takes on a ton of stress, and he's human, so it has its effects on him, but he keeps going back. And so it's that he almost seeks the stress, because in those moments, it seems that what was in the book is that's when he performs at his best. When he has all this stress and all this stuff on him, that's when he's, I forget, there was a description of what they called it, but they called it like that's how he gets stuff done. And I think they even had a negative term, like his demon mode. Yeah. And so his demon mode, but that's when he gets stuff done. Like he is just like, he can get it done. It might not be fun to work side by side with him when he's in demon mode, but he can get stuff done. So it seems like he seeks out that stress because he knows that's when he's able to produce, is in those moments. So that stuck with me, because some people run from stress, right? Like they're like, oh, this is going to be too stressful, so I'm going to back off that and go do something. And he's running into the fire going, no, this is when I start really producing. What do you take away about how he handles stress, or what did you get in the book about that, or his demon mode, if you will?
Yeah, I'd say 2 things. First is he's running toward the problems because he knows he's going to learn from it. So you have to be on the ground, seeing the problem, analyzing it. getting that feedback to improve it. And that's the only way to make a company better and better, because it compounds each time. And the other part is that he constantly sets unrealistic, in quotes, unrealistic expectations for himself and his team. And they turn out to not be unrealistic. They make whatever the vision was, whatever the goal was, happens. It just happens a little bit later than he thought it was. So it was just the timeline that was off.
Yep.
But the crazy thing he wanted to do, they do it
Yep.
time and time again. So it's stressful, but it's the way that he's found success over and over.
Yeah. So what happens next, right? So now he's got SpaceX is launched. All right. We've got rockets happening. We've got Tesla's now taken off. He doesn't need to do anything else, right? So to your point, this biography also then goes into to Twitter and X. And what was your takeaway once it started? Once he now is going into that world, it seemed there was some indications that some of Elon and how he tweets or how he communicates about woke culture or even politics, that some of that might be stemming from his father, and how his father, I think his father sent him an email about, can't you see all these things that like is happening around you and stuff? And it's almost, there's times where it seems like Elon is in that same mind as his father. And then even one of his ex-wives talked about that Elon, when he's stressed or says things, can use words like stupid or idiot. And then she said that she saw that with his father when she was around his father, that he uses some of those words. So where I'm going with that is, do you think that, what do you think was the real agenda? Reading this description from Walter Isaacson, but what do you think the agenda, or why was Elon getting into Twitter? Like, what was the point there?
Yeah, and I think even since the book has come out, he's talked about it even more, about what his real reasons were. It was to stop ideas that were potentially hurtful or negative or restrictive toward free speech, to stop those, or to geographically restrict them in one area, which would be San Francisco or wherever they were coming from, so that the natural commonplace thoughts and opinions could have a place in the world, in that Times Square or in that public square, which was Twitter and later X.
But do you think, I guess he's got all this money. Why risk all this money for Twitter though?
Because he's got a lot of money. He also has a lot of kids. And he also is a fan of humanity, right? You can see that in the original mission for SpaceX was to keep human consciousness alive.
Yeah.
Keep us striving for larger goals and visions and being inspired by what humanity is doing, but keeping us alive. And so I think that's what he's doing. It's just another industry, another area that presented a threat to that potentially as he saw it. And he needed to go figure it out and solve it. Also, he likes tweeting.
It seems like he does, doesn't it?
He likes tweeting, and he was a fan. And it also goes back to X. He wanted to make that original vision of the all-in-one bank happen, and there was already a network that he could buy, a social network that he could buy and merge it. So
there's thoughts that that's what he's going to keep trying to do, even now with
I mean, he changed
X,
the name to X.
Yeah,
he's definitely going to do it.
Yeah, so it does seem like he might be trying to go that. I don't think he banking seems like a very old industry when you think about that. It doesn't feel like it's changed much from where it was 100 years ago. So
just like cars.
Yeah, so it seems like it's something that is on the verge of needing to change, and you would have thought cryptocurrency was going to change some of it, but even that's died off a little bit now. Still there, but it didn't reshape the whole industry like maybe some thought it would. Okay, so do the kids, you mentioned he's got a lot of kids. He also has a lot of ex-wives or girlfriends. Does that take away from who he is? What does it do with how you look at him?
I think it just humanizes him for one, And I mean, the relationship with each kid was different.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't honestly take too much away from that or the personal life in the book,
Yep.
other than humanizing him a little bit. But he's just trying to keep smart people reproducing and more kids. And it's crazy how it talks about his kids, how they're scoring on tests, how they're doing in colleges. Like, they're way advanced. Like, you can tell these kids are smart and going to have an impact also.
Yeah. Do you think that really was his mission? You really think he really truly was like, with each kid, like, I am trying to better society by having more kids?
He's trying to keep smart genes.
I don't know. Maybe I was gonna say, maybe the guy just doesn't believe in birth control, but maybe it is that maybe he really is trying to help society. I mean, the birth rate in the United States, as many people know, is less than 2, right? So anytime you're less than 2, you're not covering the parents. So we are a population that is decreasing. So he's doing single-handedly trying to get our average back up over 2. Yeah. He's got a lot of work to do to get us
he's got 11, I think. So that's pretty good.
He's making an attempt. So
that was actually another formative experience for him too. I believe it was his firstborn or early on. His son passed away early, so I think that probably stuck with him too.
Yep.
And he probably learned about, with that contrast, like how much he loved having a kid, and so maybe that drives having more kids. I don't know.
It could. So, and obviously he has a hard time staying in those relationships because he's a complicated individual. So I know it doesn't necessarily take away his accomplishments, but it definitely, in my opinion, changes how you might view him as a role model. Meaning, I can view somebody as a role model for business, but I don't have to view somebody as a role model for how I would do my personal life. I wouldn't take the same path as him, but I might still look up to the decisions he makes in the business world and how he can create accomplishments, right? And I think that's the challenge I see when you read a book like this around Elon Musk or any other entrepreneur or somebody who, has accomplishments. Take Bill Gates, take Warren Buffett, take anybody else. And just because you look up to somebody for one thing does not mean you look up to them for everything. You don't have to put that person on a pedestal and say, I'm going to follow every single thing they do. You can look at what were their accomplishments and say, oh, I like what they did with that decision. I want to copy that, right? You can pick and choose.
Yeah.
So I do think this book, highlights some of those things that I can pick and choose and say, oh, I would like to follow that footstep.
Can you though?
Can I? No.
Can you though? Because not follow his footsteps, but can you pick and choose? That's the question for me is how much of if you look at him as like a system.
Yep.
Or like a shirt or something, if you pull one thread, it's all connected. It's all going to unravel the whole shirt or the whole cloth.
Yeah, I don't think I would have the same result, right? So let's take an example of Zip2. If I was there at that company, I would likely put everything into it. If I was starting a company, I would be just like him. I'd sacrifice it all. I'd shower at the YMCA. I would do a lot of things like that. I would not, though, be aggressive to team members. That's just not my nature. So would I get the same result? Maybe not. I just don't have that in me.
Right. It's hard to tell.
Right.
It's hard to know.
Right. So I might apply some things that I take out of it. So, but that's where I go. I don't know that I would get the same results, but I can look to, again, say, oh, I would like to try to do something like that. I don't know that I would have gone another rocket. Like SpaceX, I don't think I would have gone another rocket. I think I would have been like, I got to call this. I can't. This is too much. I don't know.
I mean, with how he started SpaceX, the first thing he did was he went to Russia and tried to buy rockets.
Yeah. Right.
That's not exactly.
There's certain things that I'm like, okay, I probably would never have done that.
Yeah. So you wouldn't have even gotten to the choice of the third rocket.
No.
Because that first initial decision was already so crazy.
I know. But I was more so making the point that I hope people sometimes I hear people discuss he had another kid. Wow. And they make light of it. But I go, that's just a different story that I'm not focused on. He can have as many kids as he wants. He can have as many relationships. I'm not following or looking at him about his relationships or that. I'm looking at what are the decisions he's making and what's his vision for the future so that I can understand that. And how does that play in how I look at the future of business and things? So
yeah, I think you're probably looking at it from a family perspective, or
Right.
he's looking at it from a humanity perspective. Like
Right.
humanity is the family he's trying to
Sure.
serve.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me this. Do you think that Elon Musk, as you read this book, is a role model for entrepreneurs?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
No doubt. I mean, just for me personally, definitely yes. But in general, also, I guess I'd have to add a point that it depends what your goal is. Like if you want to make a crazy outsized impact,
Yep.
like he is doing, then yes. And if you think you have a lot of capability and potential and you want to see it come to light, then definitely.
Do you think it's okay for a leader, the owner of a company, to also have a demon mode where people can't bear to be around the person?
I think that anybody, like if Walter Isaacson was to follow anybody in their life and see, you know,
You think we all have a mode that gets a little
yeah, we
rough?
all have a stressed out mode. We all
That's
have
fair.
a little rage mode.
That's
you
fair.
know, don't we? I mean,
Yeah.
you get it. You know, everybody
I'm not
gets
perfect.
angry and yells or something.
Oh,
Nobody's
yeah.
perfect. Everyone's got a little bit of that. His just happens to be in a 615-page book and in interviews.
But it also probably happens
everywhere.
more often than not. He lives in that moment. He lives to be in that, right? I mean, that's
I don't think he lives to be in demon mode. He lives to be striving for a challenge, and sometimes one of the principles is that you got to have a maniacal sense of urgency, and that's what he's trying to create in that culture.
yeah.
Which, yeah, sometimes it involves demon mode. Steve Jobs was known for that as well.
True. Nobody. Yeah.
Different
People
words,
that worked
but-
around Steve Jobs, he wasn't always the friendliest guy
Yeah,
to work
like
with.
Steve Wozniak experienced it personally as his co-founder, and he says, "Yeah, I probably would not have gotten the same result that
Which is-
Steve was able to get."
Which is hard. It also doesn't mean that it's okay to just go be a jerk to everybody that
Definitely
you
not.
work with.
Definitely not. But it's
No, there's a unique spot where it fits, where it still creates success, right? It's a visionary entrepreneur. There's just a one unique spot. You can't just go around being a jerk and expect the business to be good.
Here's where I think you can use his example, where he is a role model, is he's very principled. He has his set of principles
Yep.
that he's developed over the years from his lessons throughout the businesses. And that's what he follows when he's trying to change an industry.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't just try to create a company or a product. He is creating industries and replacing them completely.
That's true.
Like for cars, his company is worth more than every other car company. Like he is the industry for electric cars. He is the industry for rockets.
They're all playing catch up.
Yeah.
Electric cars, I mean, they can do
not doing well.
every dealership can try to do what they want. They're not going to catch up to Tesla.
Yeah, and he doesn't even use dealerships. Like he's reinvented the entire industry for cars, rockets. He'll do the same for finance and social networks. Some of those principles, also going back to his demon mode or his other side, is like for SpaceX, one of the things he used was an idiot index, as he called it, or maybe his wife called it that. But what he would look at, it's a great principle because he would look at how much it would cost for a finished product versus how much it would cost for the ingredients, for the materials that it's built from. So like how much is a sheet of metal? If that's $10 and you create a table out of it and the table costs $20, that's double. So you want to get that as close to $10 as possible. And he's doing that for every single of the 10,000 plus car parts, rocket parts. Right. That goes into making a car.
Yeah.
So it's a funny name. I think a lot of it he's just being tongue in cheek. Like I don't think he's being mean with that idiot index. It's just a funny way to call it and a way that you remember it. I don't know if I would have remembered it if it was just a cost index or something with a boring name like that.
There's one thing I take away. It's he does not care about anybody else's opinions or what they think of him. So I don't think and maybe he does, but he definitely is not worried about it and how he communicates. If he's going to send a tweet, if he's going to talk about something, if he's going to name something, if he's going to do something, he's not worried about what are people going to think about me. If I carry a sink into the Twitter office, what are people going to say, right? What other business concepts or things that did you take away out of this book that you would think would be important for us to take away before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think we definitely have to mention the algorithm that he developed for Tesla, SpaceX, and now Neuralink, and even his new projects like XAI and his AI company. It starts with, I think it's 5 steps. First of all, question every requirement. And with every requirement, make sure you know who the creator of it was, like have a name, an individual who created it, and then question it. Question them, understand why it's there. Why are we using this part in the car? Why is it this expensive? Why can't it be X expensive? Just even if it's a smarter person than you or someone who's your boss or someone else in the company, question every requirement.
Yep.
Next is delete as much as you can. Like even delete to the point where you have to add back 10% of the steps or of the parts or of the whatever the process is.
Yep.
Delete. And after you do that, now simplify and optimize. So when he's going through Tesla, building the factory so that he can get 5,000 cars a week so that he doesn't go bankrupt in 2017, he realized that one of the mistakes that he made was automating too much of the process. Like he automated things that were too complex. So he literally went into the factory and started removing machines, pulling them out, changing them out for people, for manual labor. That was able to get the feedback immediately of what building a simple, optimized part or process looked like. Once it's simple, you've removed all of the excess, all of the stuff that you don't need, and you've questioned every requirement. Now you can start accelerating it, speed it up, add more people. Like, what do you need to do to make it go faster? And once you do that, now you can automate.
Yeah.
And so that's how it came out with Tesla is becoming a company that really the product is the factories that make the cars. It's not really the cars.
Right.
The factories are like way advanced than any other factories or car companies because he's doing things like with the cars, the body of the cars are being made by a machine all as one part. It's not like 10 parts you got to put together and hammer in and spend a lot on labor. It's one part that's coming out.
Yeah.
So things like that are the result of this process. And that's exactly what he's doing at Twitter to make it more streamlined. That's what he did at Tesla. And ultimately, where this process has led him, I'll just talk about where he's going next, is with Twitter. He's realized that his companies now are data companies. That's the most valuable assets that they have. So what he's going to apply the algorithm to next is with Twitter, he's going to make an AI, sort of like a ChatGPT type competitor. He has all of this data from Twitter and tweets over the years that he can use to train the AI, on the chatbot on how to respond. What he can also do with Tesla, he's got all of the data from cars, all of the human decisions that have been made, when to turn left, when to turn right, when to stop, when to do all these things. Originally, what he tried to do was literally code every single rule that needed to be followed for streets and for driving, and that was way too complex. So now they're just training an AI. Here's what the humans did in these situations. We know because we have millions of cars out there on the road and all the data. So they're going to train that AI to be the full self-driving software.
Yep.
And it will constantly be improved because cars are going to keep being on the road every day. And then with SpaceX, I mean, he's still trying to go to Mars, launch a Starship, which was the biggest thing they've tried to launch so far. That failed in April 2023 because on the launch, it destroyed the concrete underneath it and the debris flew up and hit some of the rockets, damaging them.
Yeah.
So with SpaceX, he's still trying to go to Mars. That's still the same original mission they're going after. And I guess the last part I wanted to mention was Optimus with Tesla. he can take the data from Twitter of the chatbot, and he can take the visual data from Tesla of the world and like the physical, and he can combine it into a robot that can move in the physical space, and it can also communicate like a human would with all of the data from tweets that he has. So that's where he's going. He's got all these AI companies now, and I love how synergistic his ecosystem is. Like SpaceX and Tesla and Twitter, they all are very, very complementary without being competitive. And he can use the resources from all these companies to make them all even better.
Well, and again, I think that most people know of him from Twitter and more so Tesla, right? Most people think of him as Tesla. A lot of people don't know about PayPal.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even know about other companies.
Yeah,
right?
Zip2 for sure.
Yeah, and then you look at what he's doing with Neuralink, what he's doing with AI. These are things that people don't realize he's doing a lot, especially with Neuralink. I mean, we're talking, this is putting a computer chip in a brain. This is some crazy stuff. And didn't mention the Hyperloop, right? Like trying to figure out a way for speed to improve travel.
Yeah, the Boring Company.
Yeah, with the Boring Company. So he's doing a lot. And all of it, to your point, is to figure out a way to improve humanity in the future or help a potential problem in the future, right? Because we all know our resources are finite. So at some point we do have to travel in the universe. So as we wrap up, can you describe, after reading this book, Elon Musk in one word?
Wow, that's tough. I would say, I think Elon is an adjective, but I'm not going to. In itself, he's created that name for himself. But I would say just visionary.
Visionary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just something simple, since I only have one word.
Okay. Yeah,
there's so much more to it. Like there's so many things he's doing. He's lived the life of 7 entrepreneurs, phenomenal.
Oh my
ones,
gosh,
all in one. Like there's so many things he's doing. We couldn't even mention all the businesses.
It's true.
In our time here. It's crazy.
When you look at all the things he's done, you're exactly right. He's lived multiple lives already, and the impact he's having is, you can debate some of his impacts as either good or bad, or meaning just what he tweets and other things. You can debate his impact, but you can't debate the success he's been creating at some of these companies. I mean, come on, like this guy has made some really miraculous things happen. All right, well, John, any last words?
Thanks for having me. It's been a great time. I love talking about this, and I think for any entrepreneur, leader, manager that wants to improve a process or a system or even their whole business, they can really take the things we've discussed here and in the book and apply those to their daily life to make it even better.
Great. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening or watching today with the Optimistic American Book Club. We discussed Walter Isaacson's Elon Musk biography. The book is 600 pages. It's a big one, so we didn't touch on a lot of key points. But what I would say is it's worth a read. And I hope you enjoyed today's podcast as well as watch the video. Again, if you like the Optimistic American Book Club, please make sure to comment. Make sure to tell us through liking us or subscribing, and appreciate you. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining the Optimistic American Show. Now help us grow by subscribing to our channel. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a like and a comment. There is so much more that we have planned, and we can't wait for you to embark upon this journey with us.